Mental Health Week this week. Amazing. My favourite topic, mental health, confidence, self-esteem, all of that. I get to have a conversation with amazing people who know what they're talking about, who've got a point of view, who are going to share with you their wisdom, their experience. They're going to share it all with you. Come with me to the studio. Today I'm going to be having a conversation with Mary. Make sure to listen out for the takeaway of the day.
I'm Mary Kidson, and I run a company called Smart Processing, which provides various programs for children and adults, helps their processing of information, particularly how they process it with the auditory system. Very, very keen on encouraging people to be kind, caring, compassionate, and to look underneath the behaviours that they're seeing to see that actually there's something challenging for that individual going on. You may not understand it, you may not know what it is, but by treating that person compassionately with empathy and care and kindness, that's going to really, really help that other person.
Thank you, Mary.
It's absolutely huge because people are just put down all the time, and it's particularly in schools. And it also, a lot of it starts off, and some parents, a lot of people have been brought up where, there isn't a lot of empathy, not for being nasty, but just because, ignorance, if you like, they just don't know. I do find that once parents have this information, if they aren't aware of it, then it can be very upsetting for them when they realise that actually their child or even themselves have had an issue that's never been recognised, never been understood, never been helped. So, has a huge impact on mental health. Huge, huge impact.
So sad. It's so sad.
It's heartbreaking. It really, really is heartbreaking. And I hear it so many times. Like I said, I've seen it with my own eyes happening to my own daughter. And there was one occasion when she'd had a medical appointment, so she'd been out of school for the morning, and she came back into school at lunchtime, and she saw a whole group of children surrounding one of the playground assistants. So she went running up to them, and only to be told off. And so she had absolutely no idea what she'd done, and all she'd done is come in, and just because she'd seen what a group of children surrounded by one of the assistants, she thought that something exciting was going on, but actually this assistant was telling all the children off, and she was absolutely mortified. And these are the sorts of things that happen to children like this daily.
Misunderstanding situations.
Yes.
Completely misreading.
Completely misreading. And because they can't process the information, they just copy other children's behaviour, and that might not be appropriate. But again, there's not necessarily any understanding of why that's happening. And I've seen that happen so many times. But anyway.
So how do we help? How do we help these individuals that we recognise are behaving in a way that is working against them? What do you do that helps them to be able to process?
Yeah, well, apart from putting in the programmes obviously that I provide, which do help, there's absolutely no doubt about it. I think the other single biggest thing that we can do is sort of sit down with these children and adults even, and explain to them certainly how we see the issue, and sort of say to them, well, this must be hard for you. We understand now. And just having that, having somebody there who understands them and can sort of sit back and say, yes, it must be very hard. We can see how hard it is for you. We see it must have been very hard. That sort of goes some way to start the healing process, because then they start to feel understood. Feel listened to. And then we can say, well, we didn't know, we didn't understand, we haven't been deliberately horrible to you, but this is it won't, from now on it'll be much better and much easier for you, be easier all round. And that's, you know, it's one step towards helping that person heal, because it's traumatic. It's traumatic for them.
It is. And do you think that sometimes it means that they lose trust because the people who are meant to look after you and love you and be there for you don't get it, haven't recognised it? So do you think as they get older, they're less likely to open up? Some people say it's too late. Is there a time when it's too late to help?
I would say no. I would say there's never any time that it's too late to help, because no matter how old the person is, the brain is plastic and it can change. It may not change quite as dramatically as it will when the child is younger, but you know, adults can improve as well. Like I've mentioned before, you know, when older people have strokes, that's a classic example of brain plasticity. So we know that the brain changes throughout life. So there's never a time when we can't help. How we can help with the trauma and the anxiety that's built up over the years, that's a bit different, and that probably needs more professional help. If that person feels that they need it. But a lot of people do just seem to develop coping mechanisms and get through life that way, but they're not meeting their potential by any means.
Thank you so much. One last thing. Anyone who's watching who's an adult, who's thinking, a lot of what Mary's saying sounds like me, what should they do now that they recognise in them there are some neural deficiencies or areas in their brain that aren't processing information like everyone else is? What should they do?
I recommend that they do, more research to sort of confirm or otherwise of what they feel, and then they can start looking at possible interventions if they feel they want to try and improve things. They may just be happy with how they are, and because they've not known any different, and then changing things might be a little bit too much. So it's got to be down to the individual and their decision, but for them to know that there is help out there if they want it, that we can improve on things. And I'm here if anybody wanted to contact me to try and find out. There's a very good book out there by somebody called Norman Doidge. It's called The Brain That Changes Itself, and that's a very, very good read.
It is a brilliant read. Yeah, that's a great book. I think that book gives you hope.
It does.
Lot of hope.
Yes, it does. It does. It's amazing. It's amazing.
So how can parents or carers or waitresses or waiters or baristas or anyone that's interacting with human beings who look very normal,
yes,
but behave in a way that instantly you might think is rude and irritating, how do we get them to get their compassion? Because people are compassionate when someone's crying or someone's bleeding, but how do you get compassion when someone is just being?
That is, yes, and I think that's very difficult. And I would imagine really it's more about education, about getting education and helping people to understand what's going on. And very, very difficult, because an awful lot of people haven't come across these conditions, and so they don't have any understanding. They might have been brought up in an environment where there hasn't been any sort of empathy for people who might not be appearing to be coping as well as others. And yes, it's about developing empathy, compassion, kindness, and just thinking, trying to look beyond what you're initially seeing.
I love that. I think that's a takeaway. That's a takeaway.
It is.
So Mary, would you mind giving us a takeaway for today?
Just look beyond what is in front of you. Look beyond what you are seeing.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.